August 15th, 1977. A volunteer astronomer named Jerry Eman is sitting at a table in Ohio going through a computer printout from a radio telescope. The telescope is scanning the sky. When it picks up a radio signal, the computer prints numbers showing its strength. 1 through 9 in weak to strong. If it goes above 9, the computer switches to letters. A is 10, B is 11, and so on. Most of the printout is 1s and 2s, noise, static, the background hum of the universe. And then Eman sees this sequence, 6EQ-UJ5, and he stares at it. The U in the middle, that's the strength of 30. The strongest signal the telescope has ever recorded in 4 years of scanning the sky. Not just strong and narrow, perfectly tuned to a specific frequency, lasting exactly as long as it should last if the telescope swept past a fixed point in space. And then he picks up his pen, circles it, and writes one word in the margin. Wow. The signal came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. It lasted 72 seconds, and in nearly 50 years of searching with telescopes far more powerful than the one that found it, nobody's ever heard it again. That's the wow signal, and I think it's one of the most significant and underreported things that has ever happened on this planet. And to get a better understanding of the significance of the wow signal, let's talk about what the Big Ear telescope was doing in 1977. Big Ear was Ohio State University's radio telescope, and it was built specifically for one purpose: the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The systematic scientific effort to find evidence that we're not alone in the universe by scanning the sky for radio signals that could not have been of natural origin. That project had been running since 1973. 4 years of scanning, thousands of hours of data, mostly noise. The telescope worked by staying still and letting the Earth's rotation sweep different parts of the sky through its field of view. Each patch of sky got about 72 seconds in the beam. The data was recorded on computer printout paper and reviewed by hand because in 1977, computers were not sophisticated enough to flag anomalies automatically. So Jerry Eman, a volunteer, not even a paid researcher, was the human being whose job it was to look through the pages of 1s and 2s and catch anything that stood out. And on August 18th, 3 days after the signal was recorded, he found it. The printout he was reading was from August 15th. The signal had been sitting there for 3 days before anyone saw it. And here's the thing that should tell you how significant this was. When Eman showed this printout to the lead researchers at Big Ear, people who had been running this project for years, who had seen thousands of hours of data, who were trained to evaluate exactly this kind of thing, their reaction wasn't skepticism. Their reaction was, this is exactly what we've been looking for. Because the signal didn't just happen to be strong. It hit the specific radio frequency that scientists had theorized for decades would be the most logical choice for extraterrestrial civilization trying to make contact. And understanding why that frequency matters is the part that makes this genuinely difficult to explain away. The frequency the WOW signal arrived on is 1420 megahertz. That number's not random, it's the frequency at which hydrogen, the most common element in the universe, naturally emits radio waves. Astronomers called it the hydrogen line. In the 1950s, physicists began arguing that if intelligent civilizations somewhere in the universe wanted to send a signal that another civilization might find, the hydrogen line is the obvious choice. Every civilization advanced enough to build a radio telescope would know about hydrogen. That means every civilization would know the hydrogen line. It is the universal constant. So SETI researchers decided to focus their search there, because if someone's trying to reach us, that's where they would broadcast it. The WOW signal arrived at 1420.4556 megahertz, right on the hydrogen line, within a fraction of a percent of the exact frequency. And it wasn't just that it was this particular frequency, the signal was narrowband, meaning it was confined to an extremely tight range of frequencies with almost no spread. Natural radio sources in space are broadband. They spread across a wide range of frequencies, the way a waterfall makes noise in a wide range of sound. A narrowband signal, one that's tightly focused on a single precise frequency, is one that you would expect from a transmitter, something deliberately tuned. The signal rose and fell in exactly the pattern you would expect if the telescope swept past a fixed point in space as the Earth rotated. It behaved like a source, a fixed source out there somewhere that the telescope briefly pointed at. Every single characteristic of the WOW signal matched what scientists predicted an extraterrestrial transmission would look like. Frequency, bandwidth, intensity, duration, pattern, every one of them. And when they pointed every telescope they had back at the same patch of sky, it was gone. Now I'm going to tell you exactly what that search was like and what they found, or didn't find, because that's the part that kept researchers arguing for decades. So let's really laser in on what 6EQ-UJ5 actually means, because that matters. The Big Ear computer recorded signal strength as a single character, numbers 1 through 9 for weak signals, letters A through Z for stronger ones, where A equals 10, B equals 11, and so on. The sequence 6EQ-UJ5 shows the signal rising from 6, already above average, up through E, which is 14, Q, which is 26, and U, which is 30, the peak, and then falling back down through J, which is 19, and then ending at 5. That rise and fall pattern is exactly what happens when a telescope sweeps past a fixed source in the sky. The signal comes into the beam. It reaches maximum strength as the beam centers on the source, then fades as the beam moves past. And that strength, U, 30. The signal was 30 times the background noise level. In 4 years of operation, Big Ear had never recorded anything above 4. Something hit the telescope with 30 times the normal background level right on the hydrogen line with the perfect detection curve, and then vanished. And there's one more detail about the WOW signal that doesn't really get talked about. The Big Ear telescope had 2 receiver horns, essentially 2 ears pointed at slightly different parts of the sky simultaneously. A signal from space would be expected to show up in both horns about 5 minutes apart, as the Earth's rotation swept each one past the same point. The WOW signal only appeared in one horn. 5 minutes later, when the second horn swept through the same patch of sky, nothing. That missing detection in the second horn is either the strongest argument against the signal being extraterrestrial, or it points towards something about the signal that nobody satisfactorily explained. Either way, it adds another little interesting layer to this story. After the WOW signal was identified, Big Ear returned to the same patch of sky again and again, 50 times over the next few years, and nothing. Other radio telescopes were pointed at the same coordinates: the Very Large Array in New Mexico, the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, at the time the largest telescope on Earth. Still nothing. In 2020, a research team used archived data from Arecibo to specifically search for anything resembling the WOW signal at the same frequency from the same direction. They found what they described as similar signals, and the explanation was a natural astrophysical phenomenon involving hydrogen clouds and magnetar flares. Interesting work, but even they acknowledged it was not a definitive identification of the WOW signal source. As of today, nearly 50 years after the detection, no confirmed explanation exists. The source has never been identified, and the signal has never recurred. The natural explanations proposed have not been universally accepted by the research community, and no artificial source has been ruled out. Jerry Eman himself, the man who found it, spent years studying it. He was careful and measured in his conclusions. He didn't want to overstate what the data showed. But he said something in an interview that got my attention. He said that the WOW signal was the best candidate for extraterrestrial radio transmission ever detected. And then he said something else, something about what it would mean if it was not extraterrestrial. And it's probably the most honest assessment of this mystery that I've ever read from someone who was actually there. And over the years, several explanations have been proposed for the WOW signal. The comet hypothesis. In 2017, a researcher proposed that the WOW signal came from hydrogen gas around a comet that was passing through that part of the sky at the time. 2 comets were right in the vicinity. The idea is that the hydrogen cloud around the comet reflected or emitted radio waves at the hydrogen line frequency. And that is a creative explanation, but the problem is that comets move. A signal from a comet would drift in frequency as the comet moved relative to the telescope. The WOW signal didn't drift, it was stable, and the comets in question were not confirmed to be at precisely the right coordinates. And then there's the magnetar hypothesis. More recently, researchers proposed that a flare from a highly magnetized neutron star could have briefly brightened the hydrogen line emission from an interstellar cloud in that direction, producing something that looks like the WOW signal. And this is the most scientifically credible natural explanation currently on the table. The problem is that it hasn't been observed to produce anything quite like the WOW signal since, and the specific conditions required are complex enough that researchers disagree about whether it fully accounts for what was detected. And there's also the terrestrial radio interference explanation, that it came from Earth somehow. That's been essentially ruled out. The frequency is protected internationally specifically to avoid interference with radio astronomy. And the signal behaved like a fixed point in space, not something moving with the Earth. Each explanation has something going for it, but none of them have been confirmed. None of them have produced the consensus that would put this mystery to rest. And here's the thing, the most straightforward explanation, the one that requires the fewest additional assumption, is the one that nobody wants to say out loud. Jerry Eman was a scientist, a careful one. He spent years analyzing the WOW signal and was always reluctant to draw conclusions beyond what the data supported. And he said the signal had all the hallmarks of extraterrestrial origin. He said it was the most significant candidate SETI had ever detected. And he said that in the absence of a confirmed natural explanation, which we still don't have. So the extraterrestrial hypothesis remained on the table. And he also said that if the signal was not from an extraterrestrial source, then whatever produced it was something we had never encountered before in nature. Something outside of our current understanding of astrophysics. Something new. So either the signal came from an extraterrestrial civilization, or it came from a natural phenomenon we don't understand. And neither one of the answers to those things is small. We've been broadcasting radio signals into space for over 100 years. Television, radio, military communications. The expanding sphere of our transmissions is now more than 100 light years across. Any civilization within 100 light years of Earth that had a radio telescope could know we're here. The WOW signal came from the direction of Sagittarius, which is toward the center of the galaxy. The center of the galaxy is where the oldest stars are. Stars that have had billions of years longer than our sun to develop life and civilization. We heard something from that direction once, on the exact frequency we would have used if we were trying to say hello. For 72 seconds, and then it was gone. Now I don't know what sent that signal, but the fact that we received it and never heard it again is one of the most profound and overlooked facts about our existence on this planet. The Big Ear telescope that detected the WOW signal was demolished in 1997 to make way for a golf course expansion. The search continues with other instruments, more sensitive ones, and in 2022 a new generation of SETI researchers announced plans to systematically re-examine the coordinates of the WOW signal with modern equipment capable of detecting signals many times weaker than Big Ear could. But so far they haven't heard anything. Jerry Eman died in 2020. He spent over 40 years thinking about those 72 seconds. He never found a satisfying explanation, but he never stopped believing that the question was worth asking, and I think he's right about that. I think the WOW signal was just an alien jamming on a guitar somewhere. What do you think the WOW signal was? Drop it in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate your time. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Like and comment on this video. I'd love to know what your thoughts on the WOW signal are. Until next time, I'll talk to you later.